What's up guys, Houndish here, and today we're back with more Lightfall content. And so in this video we're going to talk about bugs, disabled exotics and broken stuff, because of course it wouldn't be a Destiny launch without broken stuff, right? But on top of this we'll also speak about hidden unlocks, future upgrades, some of which are indeed time-gated. But we will cover a hidden exotic weapon for the season, which we'll get access to soon, and it's a pretty interesting looking one. We also have new upgrades for 3.0 subclasses, a Cayde 6 tribute, and a few other things, including some early disappointment for folks in the community, unfortunately, so we'll touch on that. But as always guys, it is early days, so we got a few bits to speak about in the video. If you guys enjoy this one, a rating below really does help us out, but without further delay, let's get into it. And so let's start with a couple of important shouts from Bungie. And they say as the first day of Lightfall and Season of Defiance begins, we want players to be aware of certain information and issues that we're investigating. And initially they say the solo and legendary Lost Sectors Guardian rank objective can be completed with both Master and Legendary Lost Sectors, but also that veteran players starting Lightfall at Guardian rank 6 will not receive Vanguard Lore Books 1 through 6 and will only receive Vanguard Lore Book 7. And then they say that the Guardian rank seasonal reset text is incorrect, and Guardian ranks 7 through 11 are advanced ranks, and players at these ranks will reset to rank 6 at the end of the season. Plus that the Ascendant Scepter mod's triumph for Season of Defiance cannot be completed. And then one that affects one of the new exotic armor pieces, and they say the Swarmer's Warlock exotic legs do not create threadlings when a tangle is thrown if a player has the Strand Shackle Grenade equipped. So be aware of that if you are using that exotic. But also the Quicksilver Storm exotic auto rifle and Touch of Malice exotic scout rifle have lost their 40% damage increased against red bar enemies. And so also keep that in mind if you are using those two weapons. Speaking of exotic weapon bugs though, they say due to an issue we've disabled the Jotun exotic fusion rifle in all crucible modes. I believe there was a problem where it was creating a ridiculous number of orbs of light. They also say they've temporarily disabled the Arc Hunter's disorienting blow melee, and they're looking into an issue where some players are crashing when they go to the commendations page. And they finish by saying it's recommended not to view this screen until a fix can be deployed. And so a few things to be aware of early on right there guys. Otherwise, let us know how you've got on with Lightfall so far, any thoughts you have about the campaign, and the new content in general. We are going to discuss that a little more in just a moment, but by inspecting the Season Info tab on the Season Pass page, we do learn that there is a hidden exotic weapon for Season of Defiance. And so on the page it simply says, enter the Vex network and claim a strange new weapon. And based on what we can see in that image right here, there's a currently hidden exotic glaive for the season. We do however get info on the name of this exotic and the new ornament, and this is actually in the collections tab. So if we head to the glaive exotic ornaments, we can see the Vexcalibur exotic glaive right here. Currently we don't have all of the info on perks and abilities for the weapon, but we can see the model is very unique and there is this ornament called Nexus Sunrise. And looking at it, it almost looks like a giant key or something like that. And with it being a season exotic, also with that kind of Vex network theme, in the original form at least, this appears to be something that we're going to get access to at some point in the season, probably as part of an exotic mission thread or a quest. And so that's another kind of quest weapon alongside some of the others that we can get via Lightfall. And we know that Winterbite, Final Warning, and Deterministic Chaos are quest weapons for the expansion. Deterministic Chaos is already available and we covered that last night. But for the moment, Winterbite and Final Warning are two weapons that we can get access to the exotic quest for, or can start to earn access for them, although they are time-gated to some extent. So especially looking at Final Warning, at the Puka Pond, we can see we have to get all of the strand fragments unlocked before we can get the quest for the weapon. However, acquiring those fragments will be time-gated in 2 different steps, so we can get a bunch of them right now, but there are 4 of them that won't become available until the 7th of March reset, which is next week. And those are followed by another 4, which won't drop until the raid completion, which will be after March 10th when it launches. And so even if you complete all of the progress required up until when the raid comes out, Final Warning essentially is a weapon that we're going to be able to get access to after the new raid. But of course we can make some progress working towards them in the meantime. Fortunately though, outside of Strand, Ikora does have new fragments for Void, Solar and Arc 3.0 subclasses. So be sure to visit her as we're getting some new customization options for those classes. And especially while Strand is in a fairly bare bones position at the moment, it may actually be more fun to play around with the 3.0 stuff. And this is where we should discuss that we are seeing some very mixed feedback about Lightfall so far. Obviously, I'm sure there are plenty of players that are still working on the main story for the expansion, but there seems to be pretty hit and miss reception for the story itself. And I think during the campaign there were a lot of very cool moments, but I kind of agree with some players that it didn't necessarily feel as impactful as it could. Obviously, I don't want to talk too much about story because we're still very much in a spoiler phase, but one of the other big bits of feedback at the moment is how Strand feels pretty lackluster after the main campaign completion, especially given that various times we were granted Strand during the campaign, Bungie kind of decreased the cooldowns and let us have quite a lot of fun with it. But then now we have it in the open world, especially things like the grapple ability has a very long cooldown. And while I'm sure this will improve as we unlock fragments and get builds and things like that going, it certainly feels like it's kind of taken a bit of the fun away from Strand. But on top of that, there's a lot of very mixed feedback about the changes to mods in the game, how immersive Neomuna feels, and quite a few other elements at the moment. So again, I don't want to discuss too much because one, it's pretty early on, but secondly, and more importantly for me, obviously there are players who are still unlocking the kind of campaign, the destination, and more of the basic stuff for this expansion. So I'll be more curious to get thoughts from you guys about Lightfall so far down below. But if there was one thing I would say about it right now, for me personally, overall I'd say that it has perhaps been ever so slightly overhyped at the very least. That's just my opinion though. Of course I'm going to continue playing. I think there's still going to be a lot of cool stuff to check out. And so give us your thoughts down below. The final thing right here though, there's a pretty cool Cayde tribute in the tower, if you haven't had a chance to check it out just yet. There's some dialogue from a bunch of characters in the universe talking about Cayde. So we'll run some of that right here. For today though, if you've enjoyed the video, a rating below really does help us out. I'm going to go rest my voice for a good few hours now. As always though, I appreciate you guys tuning in, and I will catch you all very soon.
Even departed sparks, like Cayde, still leave a trace in this luminous web we call the light.
What is it that Cayde says? Teamwork makes the dream work.
Cayde may be gone, but he will not be forgotten. Just ask anyone on the farm.
Cayde 6. Wish I could have met him. Some of the stories I've heard.
Was Cayde frustrating? At times, but it was part of his charm. A lovable fool, and quite the shot to boot.
Strand is our newest foray into darkness. As I understand it now, it is the elemental manifestation of psychic connection. All minds are connected in a web of consciousness, which we can now see and feel. To wield Strand is to pull on the hidden connecting threads and to use them to create, manipulate, and unravel. I had assumed this element would behave similar to our other darkness ability. But unlike stasis, mastering Strand seems to require one to relinquish control, to embrace the connecting threads and perhaps flow with them. I look forward to experimenting more with this new element.